Quick question, and I need you to answer honestly without looking it up first. In Star Wars, what does Darth Vader say to Luke Skywalker in that iconic scene? The most quoted line in movie history. You've heard it 1,000 times. You know it by heart. If you said, "Luke, I am your father," you're wrong. The actual line is, "No, I am your father." Luke's name is never said. It has never been in the film. Not in any version, any cut, any release. Go check. Right now if you want. We'll wait. And when you come back, slightly confused and possibly unsettled, welcome to the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is the phenomenon of shared false memories. Moments where large groups of people, sometimes millions of them, remember something with complete confidence and vivid detail, only to discover that it never happened the way they remember. The logo they grew up with looked different. The character had an accessory they never actually had. The celebrity died at a completely different time than they remember, or in completely different circumstances. And the strangest part is not that individuals misremember. That's normal. Human memory is imperfect. Everyone knows that. The strangest part is that the same specific false memory is shared by thousands, sometimes millions of people who have never met, across different countries, different languages, different backgrounds. They all remember the same thing that never was. How does that happen? In this video, we're going to go through everything. We'll start with the most famous and most disturbing cases, the ones that make even die-hard skeptics pause. Then we'll look at what neuroscience actually says about how memory works, and why the scientific explanation, while compelling, leaves some things unexplained. We'll explore the two most popular alternative theories, the simulation hypothesis and the parallel universe model, and ask how seriously we should take them. We'll look at what experiments have revealed about collective false memories. And we'll end with the question that cuts deepest. If our memories can be this wrong, what can we actually trust about our experience of reality? By the end of this video, you'll never be quite as certain about your own memories again. And you probably shouldn't be. The name comes from Nelson Mandela, one of the most famous and consequential figures of the 20th century. The anti-apartheid activist who spent 27 years in prison, who became the first democratically elected president of South Africa, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, who died in December 2013 at the age of 95. Except a significant number of people remember him dying in prison. In the 1980s, they remember the news coverage. They remember his funeral. They remember Winnie Mandela's speech. They remember where they were when they heard. These are not vague impressions. They are vivid, detailed, confident memories of an event that did not happen. In 2009, a paranormal researcher named Fiona Broome was at a conference discussing this false memory with others and discovered she wasn't alone. Multiple people shared the same specific false memory of Mandela's prison death. Broome began documenting similar cases of shared false memories online, and the phenomenon quickly gathered a name: the Mandela effect. It spread rapidly, partly because the internet made it easy for people to discover that their false memories were shared, and partly because the implications were genuinely unsettling. This wasn't a story about one person misremembering something. It was a story about collective memory failure on a scale that seemed to demand explanation. And the explanations that people reached for, some scientific, some decidedly not, revealed something important about how we think about memory, reality, and the reliability of our own experience. Once you know what the Mandela effect is, you start noticing it everywhere. And some of the cases are so specific, so widely shared, and so confidently remembered that they are genuinely difficult to dismiss. The Monopoly Man. Most people, when asked to picture the Monopoly mascot, Rich Uncle Pennybags, immediately see a portly gentleman in a top hat with a monocle over one eye. The monocle feels essential to the character. It's the detail that makes him the embodiment of old money aristocracy. Except Rich Uncle Pennybags has never worn a monocle. Not in any version of the game, not in any official artwork, not ever. The monocle does not exist. And yet millions of people remember it. The Berenstain Bears. One of the most beloved children's book series in American publishing history. Generations of children grew up with the Bear family. And the vast majority of those children remember the name as Berenstain, spelled with an EIN at the end, like a Jewish surname, like Einstein. The actual spelling has always been Berenstein, with an AIN. People find their childhood books and stare at the cover in genuine disbelief. The spelling looks wrong to them. It has always been this way, and they cannot accept it. Curious George's tail. Most people remember the beloved cartoon monkey having a tail, a long, prehensile monkey tail that he used to swing and grab things. Curious George has never had a tail. He is drawn as a chimpanzee-like figure without one. Go back and look at any book, any cartoon episode, any official merchandise. No tail. People remember the tail with absolute certainty. And then there's the geographic one, New Zealand. A significant number of people remember New Zealand being located to the northeast of Australia on maps. On actual maps, it is to the southeast. People who grew up studying these maps, who passed geography tests, who traveled to the region, they remember it in the wrong place. And when shown a correct map, their first instinct is that the map is wrong. Here is the question that separates the Mandela effect from ordinary misremembering. Why is it collective? Individual false memories are expected. Memory is reconstructive, not reproductive. We don't record events like cameras. But when the same specific false memory is shared by enormous numbers of people who have never interacted, something more interesting seems to be happening. Part of the answer lies in how shared culture works. The Monopoly man's monocle, for instance, may be a bleed over from other similar cultural figures, particularly Mr. Peanut, the Planters mascot, who does wear a monocle and top hat and has a similar aesthetic. If your brain filed wealthy cartoon mascot with top hat and later retrieved details from multiple similar figures, the monocle might slip in from the wrong source. And because everyone was exposed to the same cultural images, everyone's brain might make the same error in the same direction. The Berenstain Bears spelling might reflect the statistical reality that most surnames ending in that sound are spelled EIN rather than AIN. The brain pattern matches to the more common spelling, and the less common actual spelling gets quietly corrected in memory. Again, because everyone was exposed to the same cultural pattern, everyone's memory makes the same correction. But these explanations, while plausible for individual cases, start to feel strained when you consider the sheer number of Mandela effect examples, the specificity of some of them, and the intensity with which people hold their false memories. These aren't people who vaguely misremember something. These are people who will argue passionately that the version they remember is correct, who feel that the real version is the wrong one. That emotional conviction, that unsettling sense that reality has changed rather than that memory has failed, is what gives the Mandela effect its power. And it's what drives people toward explanations that go beyond ordinary memory science. Everything you think you know about how memory works is probably wrong. And understanding why requires letting go of the most intuitive model most people have, the idea that memory is like a video recording, that somewhere in your brain, events are stored as they happened, and remembering means playing back the recording. This model is completely false. Memory does not work this way, not even close. What actually happens when you form a memory is this: your brain encodes certain aspects of an experience, the elements that seemed important, that were emotionally significant, that were attended to carefully. It does not encode everything. It never encodes everything. The vast majority of every experience you've ever had is not stored anywhere. It's gone. What is stored is a kind of compressed representation, a sketch, not a photograph. And every time you remember something, you are not playing back that sketch. You are reconstructing it. Your brain takes the stored fragments and fills in the gaps with inference, with expectation, with what makes sense given everything else you know. The reconstruction process is active and creative, and it is subject to error, suggestion, and subsequent information. The psychologist Elizabeth Loftus has spent her career demonstrating this with devastating clarity. In one famous series of experiments, she showed participants footage of a traffic accident and then asked them questions about it. One group was asked how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other. Another group was asked about when they hit each other. The smashed group reported significantly higher speeds, and a week later, were significantly more likely to falsely report having seen broken glass at the scene, even though there was none. A single word in a question changed what people remembered seeing. Not what they thought they saw, what they actually remembered with confidence as part of their experience of the event. This is the reconstructive nature of memory, and it is the foundation of the scientific explanation for the Mandela effect. If Loftus's work showed that memories can be subtly distorted by post-event suggestion, subsequent research went even further, showing that entirely false memories of events that never happened at all can be implanted in people with surprising ease. In a famous study, Loftus and her colleagues told participants that they had, as children, been lost in a shopping mall for an extended period before being found by a stranger and reunited with their family. This never happened. It was fabricated by the researchers. Participants were given this false account alongside several true childhood memories, mixed in so the false one would seem plausible. A significant proportion of participants, roughly 25%, not only accepted the false memory but elaborated on it. They added details. They described their emotional state. They remembered the appearance of the stranger who helped them. They had, in the most meaningful sense, a memory of something that never occurred. And when told at the end of the study that one of the memories was false and asked to identify which one, many could not. Some insisted the shopping mall memory was real even after being explicitly told it wasn't. This is not a quirk of weak-minded or credulous people. False memory implantation works across populations, including highly intelligent and psychologically healthy individuals. The brain does not have a reliable mechanism for distinguishing between real memories and plausible false ones, especially when the false memory is consistent with our general knowledge of the world. For the Mandela effect, this suggests a mechanism. If a false version of something, a logo, a quote, a historical fact, circulates widely enough, becomes culturally dominant enough, and is consistent enough with expectations, it can become the remembered version for enormous numbers of people. The internet, in particular, is extraordinarily efficient at spreading false versions of things and making them feel authoritative. The social dimension of the Mandela effect, the fact that false memories are shared across large groups, is explained by what psychologists call social contagion of memory. And the research on this is both illuminating and slightly alarming. Memory is not formed in isolation. It is profoundly social. What we remember is shaped by what the people around us remember, by what is discussed and reinforced in our social environment, by the stories our culture tells about the past. When a false version of something becomes the culturally dominant version, when it's repeated in conversation, referenced in media, assumed in jokes and allusions, it spreads through social networks the way a virus spreads through a population. A classic experiment by Henry Roediger and colleagues demonstrated this directly. Groups of people were given lists of words to remember. After discussion within the group, individuals were tested on what they remembered. The groups showed consistent shared false memories, words that none of them had been given but that were consistent with the theme of the list, and that had been introduced into the group's collective memory through discussion. The false memory was genuinely collective, created through social interaction rather than individual error. Scale this up to the level of popular culture, and the mechanism behind many Mandela effect cases becomes clear. The misquote, "Luke, I am your father," circulates so widely, gets referenced so often in popular culture, becomes so much the assumed form of the line, that it becomes the remembered form for enormous numbers of people who have seen the actual film. The culturally dominant false version overwrites the actual one in memory. This is a powerful explanation. It accounts for many, perhaps most, Mandela effect cases. But it doesn't silence the most interesting version of the question, because it doesn't account for cases where there is no obvious cultural source for the false memory, where the misremembering is specific, consistent, and widespread, but there's no circulating false version that could have spread through social contagion. Those are the cases that keep the conversation going. Let's go deeper into the Star Wars case, because it is the most famous Mandela effect example and the most instructive about how these false memories form and persist. The scene. Darth Vader has just revealed to Luke Skywalker that he is his father. It is one of the most dramatic moments in cinema history, a revelation that recontextualized everything that came before and set the trajectory for everything that followed. The actual line, spoken by Vader, is, "No, I am your father." The false version, "Luke, I am your father," is so ubiquitous that it has essentially replaced the real line in popular culture. It appears in parodies, references, memes, Halloween costumes, greeting cards. It is the version that gets quoted at parties, in offices, in casual conversation. It is, culturally speaking, the line. But it was never said. The word Luke does not appear in that line. It never has. Why does this specific misquote exist? The most likely explanation is that the scene is usually described rather than directly quoted. And when you describe a scene in which a character addresses another character, you naturally include their name. And then Vader says, "Luke, I am your father." The description becomes the memory. The name that was implied by context, Vader was, after all, talking to Luke, gets inserted into the quote. But here's what makes it a genuine Mandela effect rather than just a misquote. People don't just misquote the line. They remember hearing it. They have a clear auditory memory of James Earl Jones's voice saying, "Luke." They will argue about it. They will bet money on it. They have a memory of something that the film does not contain and has never contained. That gap between misquoting and misremembering is where the Mandela effect lives. And it is genuinely strange. Let's spend more time with the Monopoly Man, because this case reveals something important about how Mandela effects form at the intersection of similar cultural images. Rich Uncle Pennybags, the Monopoly mascot since 1936, has a top hat, a white mustache, a rotund figure in a tuxedo, and a cheerful expression. He does not have a monocle. He has never had a monocle in any official Hasbro artwork, any edition of the game, any licensed product. But Mr. Peanut, the Planters mascot, also a top hat-wearing anthropomorphic figure associated with wealth and elegance, does have a monocle, and has since 1916. The two characters occupy overlapping cultural space. Both are top-hatted, tuxedoed symbols of a certain kind of old-fashioned affluence. They are similar enough that details might bleed between them in memory. This bleed-over theory, where details from similar cultural images contaminate each other in memory, is compelling. But it still doesn't fully explain why the false memory is so consistent and so confident. People don't vaguely think there might be a monocle. They see it clearly. They remember it specifically. Their mental image of the Monopoly Man includes the monocle as a defining feature. The Curious George case is similarly instructive. Curious George is explicitly modeled on a chimpanzee, and chimpanzees do not have tails. The character's lack of a tail is not an oversight. It is anatomically accurate. And yet, the tail memory is widespread and vivid. People who grew up with the books, who read them repeatedly, who loved the character, remember a tail that was never there. One possible explanation: monkeys in general, in the cultural imagination, have tails. The brain's stored representation of cartoon monkey includes a tail, and when it reconstructs the specific memory of Curious George, the generic monkey tail gets included. The specific overrides the general. Except it doesn't. The general leaks in and becomes specific. Beyond the pop culture cases, there are Mandela effect examples involving geography, history, and public figures that are harder to explain through simple cultural contamination. Billy Graham, the American evangelical preacher, one of the most influential religious figures of the 20th century, died in February 2018 at the age of 99. But a significant number of people have vivid memories of his death occurring years earlier, with funeral coverage, eulogies, obituaries. Some people claim to remember specific details of the coverage, specific things that were said about him. Graham was very much alive until 2018, and there is no major false report of his death that circulated widely enough to explain the scale of the false memory. New Zealand's position on maps is another striking case. New Zealand is clearly located to the southeast of Australia. Southeast, not northeast. And yet the northeast memory is widespread among people who study geography, who have seen countless maps, who are otherwise geographically literate. There is no obvious cultural source for this false memory, no widely circulated incorrect map, no famous misplacement that people might have absorbed. Then there is the case of the Fruit of the Loom logo. Many people remember the logo featuring a cornucopia, a horn of plenty with the fruit spilling out of it. There is no cornucopia in the Fruit of the Loom logo. There never has been. It is simply fruit arranged in a cluster. The cornucopia memory is detailed and specific, shared widely, and has no obvious source. These cases are the ones that most resist the standard scientific explanations. They are not cases of a culturally dominant false version replacing the real one. They are cases of a specific, consistent, widespread false memory with no clear origin. And it is these cases that drive people toward the more radical explanations. The scientific toolkit for explaining the Mandela effect is robust and well-established. Let's lay it out clearly, because it deserves a fair hearing before we move to the alternatives. Confabulation is the process by which the brain fills gaps in memory with plausible fabrications, without any awareness that it is doing so. The confabulated memory feels just as real as an actual memory, because from the brain's perspective, it is using the same reconstruction process. A brain that doesn't have the Monopoly man's monocle stored will reconstruct the character using available templates, and if those templates include other monocled characters from the same cultural era, the monocle might be confabulated into place. Confirmation bias amplifies this. Once you believe something, once you have a memory of the Monopoly man's monocle, you are more likely to notice things that confirm it and less likely to notice things that contradict it. You might look at the actual logo and see the monocle, or at least feel uncertain because your expectation is so strong. The memory shapes perception, and the shaped perception reinforces the memory. Social contagion of memory, as we've discussed, explains how false memories spread through populations. The internet accelerated this dramatically. A false version of something can reach millions of people in hours, establishing itself as the culturally dominant version before the accurate one has a chance to compete. And once the false version is established in social memory, in the stories people tell, the references they make, the assumptions they share, it becomes the version that individual memories are reconstructed around. Priming and source confusion round out the toolkit. Your memory of something is influenced by everything you've encountered that is similar to it, and you often cannot accurately identify the source of a memory fragment. The Berenstain Bears spelling gets primed by the much more common EIN spelling of similar names, and the source of the correct spelling gets confused with the source of the incorrect one. You remember seeing EIN because you've seen it many times, just not on that specific book cover. The scientific explanation is genuinely powerful. It accounts for the existence of false memories, for their emotional vividness, for their resistance to correction, and for the social mechanisms that spread them across populations. For the vast majority of Mandela effect cases, probably for nearly all of them, some combination of these mechanisms is the correct explanation. But there are limits, and the limits are worth being honest about, because intellectual honesty requires acknowledging what we don't explain as clearly as what we do. The scientific explanation is strongest for cases where there is a clear cultural source for the false version. The Star Wars misquote has an obvious origin in the way the scene gets described. The Monopoly monocle has a plausible origin in bleed over from similar characters. The Berenstain spelling has an obvious origin in the frequency of similar spellings. The scientific explanation is weakest for cases where no such source exists. The New Zealand geography case is difficult. There is no widely circulating incorrect map that could have seeded the false memory. The Billy Graham death case is difficult. There is no major false report that could explain the scale and specificity of the false memories. The fruit of the loom cornucopia is difficult. There is no obvious template from which the cornucopia was drawn. Scientists are comfortable saying, "We don't know the specific source of this false memory," without concluding that no such source exists. The absence of an identified mechanism is not the same as the absence of a mechanism. These cases might simply be examples where the cultural seeding was more subtle or diffuse than we can trace. But the honest scientist also has to acknowledge that "we don't know the source" is not a complete explanation. And it is in that space of acknowledged uncertainty that the alternative theories find their foothold. Here's the thing about the Mandela effect that the standard scientific explanation misses, or at least underweights, the phenomenology. Phenomenology means the lived experience, what it actually feels like from the inside. And what Mandela effect experiences feel like from the inside is not, "I made a mistake." Feels like reality changed. Feels like you remember correctly and the world is wrong. The emotional valence is not embarrassment at a memory error. It is disorientation at a discrepancy between your memory and the evidence in front of you. This is not trivial. The feeling that the world has changed, rather than that you misremembered, is itself a datum. It tells us something about how the brain encodes and evaluates memories, that the confidence associated with these false memories is indistinguishable from the inside from the confidence associated with accurate ones. And for many people, that indistinguishability is the most unsettling part. If you cannot tell from the inside whether your confident memories are accurate or false, if the subjective experience of a true memory and a false one is identical, then what can you trust? How do you know which of your memories are real? The scientific answer is, you use external verification. You check sources, consult records, look at photographs. You don't rely on memory alone for things that matter. But that answer, while sensible, has a vertigo-inducing implication. Your subjective experience of the past, the memories that constitute your sense of identity, your history, your relationships, cannot be fully trusted. You are, in some fundamental sense, living with a reconstructed past that may differ from what actually happened in ways you cannot detect. That's disturbing enough on its own. And it's the platform from which the alternative theories launch. If you watched our simulation theory video, you'll remember the central proposition that our reality might be a computational simulation run by an advanced intelligence. And if that's true, then the Mandela effect has a very specific and very unsettling interpretation. Glitches. In any sufficiently complex computational system, bugs occur. Inconsistencies emerge. Data gets corrupted. States don't update correctly. The simulation runs, but not perfectly, and occasionally the imperfections show through. The Mandela effect in this framework is not a failure of human memory. It is a failure of the simulation's consistency. The logo genuinely looked different before. The geography genuinely was different. The quote genuinely was said in the way people remember. And then something changed, an update, a patch, a correction, and the simulation's current state no longer matches what it used to be. The humans inside the simulation still have their memories from before the change. Those memories are accurate to a version of reality that no longer exists. When they compare their memories to the current state of the simulation, they find a discrepancy. They are not misremembering. They are remembering correctly, just a version that has been overwritten. This is not a scientific hypothesis. Cannot be tested in any conventional way. But it has a seductive internal logic. It explains the confidence of the false memories. It explains the emotional feeling that the world has changed rather than that the rememberer is wrong. And it connects to a broader framework that some serious thinkers take seriously. The simulation explanation also has a darker implication. If the simulation can be patched, if the programmers can change what the world looks like without changing the memories of the people inside it, then the Mandela effect is not just a curiosity. It is evidence of intervention, of someone editing the code while we're running inside it. The idea that reality might have been edited, that what we remember reflects a previous version of the simulation, and what we now observe reflects an updated one, is philosophically rich and empirically untestable. But it raises questions worth sitting with. If the simulation can be edited, what gets edited and why? The Mandela effects we've cataloged are relatively minor: logos, quotes, geographic positions. Why would a programmer update those specific things? What purpose would changing the Berenstain Bears spelling serve? Why would the Monopoly man's monocle be removed? One answer: the edits aren't intentional. They're the byproduct of larger changes, corrections to the simulation's physics, adjustments to historical trajectories, fixes to continuity errors that the programmers noticed. The visible Mandela effects are not the intended changes. They are the unintended residue of larger edits, the rough edges where the update didn't integrate smoothly with existing memory states. Another answer: what we identify as Mandela effects are only the cases where the discrepancy between memory and current state is clear enough to notice. For every case where millions of people remember a logo differently, there might be thousands of cases where the edit went unnoticed, where the memory updated along with the reality, or where the change was in something no one was paying close attention to. We would only see the tip of the iceberg. The rest of the edits would be invisible, absorbed into memory without friction, leaving no trace. Again, this is not science, but it is a coherent story. And coherent stories that connect unexplained phenomena to broader frameworks have a powerful pull on human minds. Which is precisely why the simulation explanation for the Mandela effect has spread as widely as it has. Among all the evidence cited by simulation theory proponents, the Mandela effect has a special status because it is personal. It is not an abstract argument about mathematics or quantum mechanics or fine-tuned constants. It is an argument rooted in your own direct experience, your own memories, your own sense that something is wrong with the version of reality you're currently in. That personal quality makes it uniquely compelling. When Nick Bostrom argues for the simulation hypothesis based on probability theory, most people engage with it intellectually but not viscerally. When someone asks you about the Monopoly man's monocle and you realize you remember it clearly and it was never there, that hits differently. That is a moment of genuine personal disorientation, a crack in the ordinary certainty of lived experience. And the simulation explanation is the only one that tells you your memory is right. Every other explanation tells you that you misremembered, that your confident, vivid memory is wrong. The simulation explanation says, no, you remember correctly. The world changed. You're not crazy. You're just running in a system that got updated. That is a psychologically powerful message. It validates the experience rather than correcting it. And for people who find the experience of the Mandela effect genuinely unsettling, who feel that disorientation deeply, the simulation explanation offers something the scientific one doesn't: comfort in the form of confirmation. Which is not, of course, a reason to believe it. Psychologically satisfying explanations are not necessarily true ones. But it is a reason to understand why the connection between the Mandela effect and the simulation theory has become so culturally durable. The other major alternative explanation for the Mandela effect draws on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. And it is, in its own way, even more radical than the simulation hypothesis. The many worlds interpretation, as we explored in our multiverse video, proposes that every quantum event causes a branching of reality. Every possible outcome of every quantum measurement actually occurs in separate, non-communicating branches of the universal wave function. The universe is not one reality. It is an infinite proliferation of realities, constantly branching, each as real as any other. In this framework, the Mandela effect has a striking explanation. Some people have, through some quantum process not yet understood, shifted between branches. They are from a branch in which the Berenstain Bears was spelled Berenstain, in which the Monopoly man had a monocle, in which Nelson Mandela died in prison. And somehow, through a mechanism that the many worlds interpretation doesn't actually predict or describe, they ended up in this branch where those things are different. Their memories are accurate. To their branch, they are completely correct. But they are now in a branch where the facts are different. And the discrepancy between their memories and this branch's reality is what we call the Mandela effect. This explanation has the same psychological appeal as the simulation version. It validates the memory. You are not wrong. You are from somewhere else. But it has an additional feature that some find appealing. It is grounded in a real, serious physical theory. The many worlds interpretation is not fringe science. It is one of the most discussed interpretations of quantum mechanics among physicists. Here is where we need to be careful and honest, because the many worlds interpretation is a serious physical theory, and the Mandela effect explanation based on it is not. The many worlds interpretation describes a branching of the universal wave function at every quantum measurement. The branches are completely non-communicating by design, by mathematical necessity. Information does not pass between branches. Observers do not move between branches. Each branch evolves independently, forever, with no possibility of cross-branch interaction. So the idea that a person might have shifted from one branch to another, carrying memories from the original branch into the new one, is not a prediction of the many worlds interpretation. It is not even consistent with it. The many worlds interpretation explicitly rules out the kind of cross-branch migration that the Mandela effect parallel universe theory requires. What would be required for the parallel universe explanation of the Mandela effect to work is something quite different from the many worlds interpretation as physicists understand it. Some mechanism by which consciousness or memory or some aspect of a person's information state could transfer between branches. No such mechanism is known, predicted, or theoretically coherent within current physics. This doesn't mean the explanation is impossible. It means it requires physics beyond what we currently have. And requires physics beyond what we currently have is a significant qualifier. It means the explanation is not grounded in existing science, even if it borrows the vocabulary of existing science. The honest assessment, The parallel universe explanation for the Mandela effect is an evocative idea that draws on real physics but extends far beyond what that physics actually says. It is speculation dressed in scientific language, which makes it more compelling than pure fantasy, but not more true. Despite its physical limitations, the many worlds framework applied to the Mandela effect reveals something genuinely interesting about how we think about identity and memory. If you take seriously the idea that you might be from a different branch, that your memories might be accurate to a reality you no longer inhabit, then the question of who you are becomes complicated in a new way. Your identity is built on your memories. Your sense of continuity, of being the same person you were yesterday, last year, in childhood, depends on the chain of memory that connects those moments. If some of those memories are of a different branch's history, then in what sense are you the same person who experienced them? This is not a practical problem. The parallel universe explanation is almost certainly not literally true. But it is a philosophically interesting edge case that highlights something real about the relationship between memory and identity. We are, in a very meaningful sense, the stories we tell about ourselves. And if the material of those stories can be wrong, can be memories of things that didn't happen or didn't happen the way we remember, then the self that those stories construct is built on uncertain ground. The Mandela effect, in this light, is not just a quirky internet phenomenon. It is a challenge to the most basic assumption of personal identity, that your memories, however imperfect, are memories of your reality. The possibility that they might not be, whether because of memory reconstruction, simulation updates, or quantum branching, is genuinely unsettling in a way that goes beyond any individual false memory about a cartoon monkey's tail. The scientific study of collective false memories has advanced significantly since the Mandela effect became a cultural phenomenon, and some of the findings are genuinely surprising, even to researchers who are skeptical of the alternative explanations. One striking area of research involves what happens when you present people with evidence that contradicts their Mandela effect memory. The typical expectation would be that people would update their belief when shown the actual logo, the actual quote, the actual spelling. Memory is malleable, after all. If it can be distorted by post-event suggestion, surely it can be corrected by accurate information. But this often doesn't happen. People shown the actual Berenstain Bears cover with the correct spelling frequently report that the cover looks wrong. They acknowledge intellectually that the cover says Berenstain, but they continue to feel that Berenstain is correct. The false memory doesn't update when confronted with contradicting evidence. It persists alongside the evidence, creating a strange dual awareness. I can see it says Berenstain, and I remember it as Berenstain, and I cannot reconcile these two things. This persistence under confrontation with evidence is unusual. Normal misremembering, when corrected, typically updates. The person says, "Oh, I was wrong, thanks for the correction," and moves on. The emotional valence of being corrected is mild embarrassment, not existential disorientation. Mandela effect corrections produce something different, a lingering sense of wrongness that the correction doesn't fully resolve. Researchers have speculated that this persistence reflects the depth at which the false memory is encoded, not as a surface-level factual belief but as something more fundamental, something embedded in the associative structure of long-term memory in a way that doesn't respond to simple propositional correction. There's a particular phenomenon that Mandela effect researchers have documented and that deserves attention: the experience of being shown the real version and genuinely not being able to accept it. This is different from stubbornness or motivated reasoning. These are people who are genuinely trying to update their belief, who accept intellectually that the evidence in front of them is real and accurate, and who still cannot shake the feeling that the version they remember is the correct one. Psychologists have a term for this: belief perseverance. Even when the evidential basis for a belief is undermined, the belief itself tends to persist. The emotional and associative connections that the belief has formed over time, the web of related memories, the sense of certainty, the identity implications, don't dissolve just because the central claim has been refuted. For Mandela effect cases, belief perseverance is particularly pronounced because the false memory often has deep cultural and personal associations. The Berenstain Bears spelling is associated with childhood, with safety, with a whole texture of early experience. Correcting the spelling feels like correcting the childhood, like telling someone that their warmly remembered past was slightly different from how they experienced it. The brain resists this revision in a way it doesn't resist more neutral corrections. Some researchers have used this resistance as a window into how memories are embedded and retrieved, arguing that the Mandela effect, precisely because it produces such strong resistance to correction, offers a uniquely valuable opportunity to study the emotional architecture of long-term memory. The false memories are like probes into the deep structure of how we store and protect our sense of the past. The scientific testability of the Mandela effect depends heavily on which explanation you're testing. The memory science explanation is already well tested. The mechanisms it invokes, reconstructive memory, social contagion, source confusion, confabulation, are all robustly established by decades of experimental psychology and cognitive neuroscience. Testing whether these mechanisms can produce the specific patterns seen in Mandela effect cases is ongoing, and the results generally support the memory science explanation for most cases. The simulation hypothesis explanation is not testable in any direct way, which is one of its weaknesses as a scientific hypothesis. If the simulation can be edited without leaving detectable traces, then no observation could distinguish between memory error and simulation edit. The hypothesis is unfalsifiable in the strict Popperian sense, which means it is not a scientific hypothesis at all. It is a metaphysical position. The parallel universe explanation faces similar problems. Even in principle, if branches don't communicate, there is no observation that could confirm cross-branch migration. You cannot test whether someone's memories are from a different branch, because the branch they supposedly came from is inaccessible by definition. What can be tested, and what researchers are beginning to do, is the comparative frequency and character of Mandela effect false memories across populations, cultures, and age groups. Do people who have been exposed to more internet-mediated cultural discussion show more Mandela effect experiences? Are the false memories consistent with known mechanisms of social memory contagion, or do some cases show patterns that those mechanisms don't predict? These studies are in their early stages, but they represent the genuinely scientific approach to the phenomenon, not seeking to prove or disprove the alternative explanations, but characterizing the phenomenon precisely enough that any adequate explanation will have to account for it. Let's arrive at the question that the Mandela effect ultimately forces us to confront. If our memories are this unreliable, if millions of people can share vivid, confident, detailed memories of things that never happened, what does that mean for our trust in our own experience of reality? The answer, if you follow the memory science, is genuinely unsettling. You cannot reliably distinguish from the inside between an accurate memory and a false one. Both feel the same. Both carry the same emotional weight, the same sense of certainty, the same quality of presence. The subjective experience of remembering is not a reliable guide to the accuracy of what is remembered. This means that your autobiography, the story you tell about your own life, the memories that constitute your identity, is almost certainly partly false. Not dramatically false in most cases. The broad strokes are probably right, but the details, the specific words spoken in important conversations, the precise sequence of events on significant days, the appearance of places and people and things from your past, these are reconstructions. They are accurate in their emotional truth, perhaps, in the sense that they capture how things felt, but not necessarily in their factual details. Elizabeth Loftus, who has spent her career documenting the fallibility of memory, has said that she finds this unsettling even knowing everything she knows about the mechanisms. The personal past, the sense of having a continuous, reliable history, is one of the foundations of psychological well-being. Learning that the foundation is partly fabricated is not comfortable, even when you know exactly why. But there's another way to look at it. Memory is not supposed to be a perfect recording. It is supposed to be a useful tool for navigating the present and future. And the reconstructive, creative, socially influenced nature of memory is part of what makes it useful. It allows us to update our past in light of new information, to integrate new experiences into existing frameworks, to maintain a sense of coherent identity across time even as we change. The very flexibility that makes memory fallible also makes it adaptive. The Mandela effect raises a deeper philosophical question that goes beyond individual memory. What is reality, and how do we know what it is? For most practical purposes, reality is what we can verify through shared evidence, through physical records, photographs, recordings, documents. The Berenstain Bears spelling can be checked against the actual books. The Monopoly man can be checked against actual Hasbro products. Reality, in this sense, is what the evidence says it is, not what we remember it to be. But here's the complication. All of that evidence is itself interpreted through the same cognitive machinery that produces false memories. We trust photographs because we trust the physical process of photography. We trust official records because we trust the institutions that maintain them. We trust our current perceptions because we have no alternative. But none of these are infallible either. The philosopher's term for the version of reality that is constructed through shared interpretation and social agreement is consensual reality, the reality that we, collectively, agree exists. Most of the time, consensual reality and physical reality align closely enough that the distinction doesn't matter. But the Mandela effect reveals a crack. Our collective memories, a major component of consensual reality, can diverge from the physical record. And when they do, we experience it as the physical record being wrong. That inversion, the feeling that the evidence is wrong rather than the memory, is the most philosophically interesting aspect of the Mandela effect. It suggests that consensual reality has more power over our experience than we typically acknowledge. That what really happened is not just a matter of physical fact but of what enough of us remember, and that when the two diverge, the experience of reality itself becomes unstable. And now we arrive, as we always do, at the question that actually matters. What do we do with this? The Mandela effect is not going to go away. New cases keep emerging. New people keep discovering that their confident memories don't match the documented record. New arguments keep circulating about what this means, about memory, about reality, about simulation, about parallel worlds. The temptation is to choose a lane. Either you accept the scientific explanation fully and dismiss the anomalous cases as unexplained but explainable in principle, or you embrace one of the alternative theories and find a framework that validates your experience. Both choices offer a kind of comfort, the comfort of having an answer. But perhaps the more honest response is to sit with the uncertainty, to hold the scientific explanation as the most probable one, while acknowledging that it doesn't account for everything, to take the alternative explanations seriously as philosophical possibilities, while acknowledging that they are not empirically established, to recognize that the question "what really happened" is harder to answer than it seems, and that our memories, however vivid, are not a reliable guide. What the Mandela effect ultimately teaches us is epistemic humility. The confidence with which we hold our memories is not calibrated to their accuracy. We can be completely certain and completely wrong. We can share that certainty with millions of others and still be wrong. The felt reality of a memory is not evidence of its truth. That's uncomfortable. It should be. It is a genuine limitation of the human cognitive system, one that has served us well enough to survive and thrive, but that fails in specific, traceable ways that the Mandela effect makes visible. And if you find that disturbing, if you walk away from this video with a slightly less certain grip on your own memories, a slightly more questioning relationship with your own sense of the past, then the Mandela effect has done something valuable. It has reminded you that the world you live in is, in part, a construction, that the past you carry with you is, in part, a story your brain tells, that certainty, in memory as in much else, is often the last refuge of the unexamined. Examine it. It's worth it, even if what you find is uncomfortable, especially if what you find is uncomfortable.